She was just 24 years old when she armed herself with a kitchen knife and walked into the private chambers of one of the most powerful men in revolutionary France. She walked out as one of the most unlikely and infamous assassins of the 18th century. Welcome back to Historical Horror, a series in which I draw upon my two absolute favorite subjects to bring you the strangest, creepiest, darkest tales from our past. Today, we're talking about Charlotte Corday, who committed a brazen and shocking assassination that would become immortalized in one of history's most unsettling works of art. That means we're going back to the French Revolution. I love the French Revolution. So dramatic. So, it's 1793 and Paris is seething. The Reign of Terror is in full swing, and the revolution is growing bloodier by the day, spurred in large part by this man, Jean-Paul Marat. Now, the French Revolution is wild. People can and do spend their entire lives studying it. But for our purposes, just some quick down and dirty backstory. So Marat had started off as a Jacobin, but had fairly quickly become radicalized, aligning himself with the Cordeliers, and by 1793, he was a vehement champion of the Sans-Culottes, which was essentially the militant Parisian mob, i.e. the most radical and ungovernable of the revolutionaries. He wrote and published his own paper, L'Ami du Peuple, Friend of the People, in which he openly called for violence against the so-called enemies of the revolution. Charlotte Corday was the daughter of a minor noble family in Normandy. Despite this, she herself was a revolutionary, albeit a strong supporter of the Girondins, which was the most moderate faction of all the revolutionaries. The Girondins were the ones who were like, yay, bring down the monarchy, liberal reforms, but maybe we shouldn't be murdering everybody. Their opposition to the more radical policies of the Montagnards, or the Mountain faction, would result in a purge of moderates from government and eventually devolve into the mass execution of the Girondins. The purge and execution of the moderates is traditionally considered the official beginning of the Reign of Terror. Like French Revolution poster boy Maximilien Robespierre, Marat was one of the radical voices who insisted that the only way the revolution would survive was through violent, brutal elimination of any and all who opposed it. Charlotte and her fellow Girondins were horrified by this militant rhetoric. They believed that Marat and his incendiary writings were directly responsible for the September massacres of 1792, in which thousands of Parisian prisoners were slaughtered. Fearing that Marat's politics would incite an outright civil war, Charlotte decided to take matters into her own hands. It's 1793, and Marat is confined to his bathtub. Seriously, he suffered from a debilitating, blistering skin disease that was so painful, the only relief he had was when he was soaking in warm water. So he had literally been doing all his revolutionary work, his writings, and taking all of his personal meetings from the relative comfort of his bathtub. Charlotte arrives in Paris and straight away purchases a kitchen knife. On July 13th, she goes to Marat's house with a fake petition claiming to have intel on a Girondin uprising. Initially turned away at the door by a relative, she returns a few hours later and manages to talk her way inside. She is admitted to Marat's private chambers, kitchen knife hidden under her shawl. The meeting lasts mere moments. Marat is taking down her list of fake names when she pulls out the and plunges it right into his chest. He dies instantly, slumped, bloody, still clutching her fake petition in his hand. Charlotte had come for one purpose, and she had done it. She did not attempt to flee and was immediately arrested. Her trial was quick and riveting, and in the course of her defense, she famously stated, "I have killed one man to save 100,000. Unsurprisingly, she was convicted and condemned to death. On July 17th, 4 days after the assassination, Charlotte was taken to the infamous Place de Grève and there executed by guillotine. And here's a bit of macabre lore. According to tradition, when the deed was done, the executioner held up her head for the crowd to see and slapped her cheek. And when he did so, her face flushed red in outrage at the slight. This horrified witnesses, fueling belief that consciousness lingered after death. And that is where the story technically ends. But for me, at least, one of the most chilling vestiges of this tale is in a work of art it inspired. You may have seen it before. Jacques-Louis David's The Death of Marat. Now, my undergrad stint in art history made me obsessed with this creepy, haunting image. In his famous piece, David depicts the scene not as a messy assassination, but as a martyrdom. Marat's pale, limp, lifeless body echoes the pose of Christ in many Renaissance pietas, his bath transformed into a sort of altar. Charlotte Corday hoped to end, or at least slow, the violence of the revolution. Instead, she became part of a grotesque spectacle, an act of political murder transformed into religious iconography, sanctifying bloodshed as if it were holy.